Good morning again. Grateful to be with you all. Again, my name is Chris, and I have the privilege of preaching this morning. Side note, if you're wondering, so I'm a Presbyterian pastor, and so that's why the robe is black. So, all right, I'll invite you to pray with me. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. What if the true act of faith isn't walking on water, but being willing to fall into it? Hear me out. In the gospel reading, the disciples are in the middle of the Sea of Galilee, waves battering the boat in the middle of a windy storm. Jesus is there on the water, and Peter starts walking toward Jesus on the water. Now, don't get me wrong, that's pretty impressive. 10 out of 10. Walking on water would have totally gone viral on TikTok. They're like on the boat, like, oh my God, literally. Look at that. It's not AI. He's walking on water. But then, Peter notices the strong wind, becomes frightened, and begins to sink. He cries out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reaches out his hand and catches him, and he says, "You have little faith. Why did you doubt?" Now, let's take the story as it is for a moment. Forget the question, or leave aside the question, how are these people walking on water here? Taking it at face value, one way to interpret this story is that Peter should have never gotten nervous when he was out there and noticed the strong winds, and maybe he wouldn't have sank. Maybe. But the text never really explicitly says why Jesus says Peter doubted. So I resonate with another interpretation. Peter had confidence in Jesus and himself when he was walking high up on that water. But then when he started falling into the water, when he's surrounded by the battering waves, why did Peter have to go, "Lord, save me"? Jesus is right there, presumably the one helping him walk on water and stuff. Right? If you're lifting weights with someone, right? You're lifting weights. Obviously my form is fine. And you have imagine more on the bench and you're lifting weights and someone's spotting you, right? Every time the bar is coming down, you don't go, help me, right? You trust that your buddy is spotting you, right? Jesus was right there. Why was Peter good when he was high above the waters, but not when he was in the waters, in the waves, in the mess, in the elements? What if the journey of life is about falling into the water, into the stormy sea? And then trusting that falling into the water is the way forward to get back up. Confession time, I used to be so afraid to mess up, to make the wrong decision, whether it was something big like a career change or saying the wrong thing to a loved one. I had to get I'm a perfectionist. What do you call it? A former perfectionist, still trying to recover. Has anyone ever felt like they were afraid to mess up? I hear resonance. But I've come to realize, or I try to realize every day, because, we're all growing, I realize if you don't mess up, you don't learn. You can read a cookbook, a recipe 1,000 times until you're blue in the face, memorizing and intellectualizing every single step of the recipe. But until you get messy with the ingredients, And you try it once, and you're like, oh, I kept the burner on for too long. Or, oh, it needs a little more paprika next time. Or, oh, I definitely burned it in the oven and got to throw this one away. Right? And then the real fun part is you've cooked it enough times where you're like, I can go off recipe. Let's add some onions here. Let's put some pork there. But you can't get there if you're like, but if I take a step? What if I fall in the water? What if I fall in the water? And beyond the fear of messing up, there are so many stormy waters that life brings us, right? A break in a relationship, a report from a doctor, a loss of a loved one, the stress of school, work, health issues, a bill in the mail bringing up money anxiety. Y'all know what I mean? Are we willing to accept the storms of life that come? That maybe we're in the wave right now. To be willing and to accept that you will probably fall into the water and then trust that you will grow and learn from the storms. Trusting that to fall into the water is to be human. And perhaps even believe that when you fall in, there is where God is. Now, I don't believe in a secret formula where if you're like, if I have enough faith, then everything good around me is going to be great and I'm going to be cool. Anyone who's lived long enough and even has a deep faith knows the storms of life still come. And people who have that faith know that it's really God showing up in the mess, in the waves. And do you have this experience? More often than not, it seems like God shows up through someone else coming into the water to swim with you. Faith isn't forcing your mind into thinking you always got to walk on that water alone. Many of life's storms can be caused by trying to fool yourself into thinking, I got to walk on it on my own, I got to keep it all together. We don't seek help. We deny the storm that's right in front of us. You ever have that friend who's like, oh, everything's fine, everything's fine, right? And not, everything's fine because I can grow from this, but like, no, it's not happening. This isn't happening. I don't have to deal with this mortgage. I don't have to deal with my grief or depression. I don't have to have that hard conversation. And I certainly don't want anyone to know I don't have it all together. What if we stopped trying to desperately pretend like we're not going to fall in the water, and instead look for the people in the water with us who want to help carry us out together, and look for God in the storm? By the way, I have a theory that many of life's storms come from others expecting or demanding you to walk on water in the way that you want to, in the walk on water in the one quote-unquote perfect way, instead of getting in the water together. You know what I mean? Think of the unrealistic or unreasonable expectations many place on their children or grandchildren. I'm a parent myself and guilty of this, while they're still growing up. Or conversely, not expecting anything of them and not being there with them when they fall. Or think of a larger systemic level. What I mean by others demanding you to walk on water, expecting you to walk on water. Think of women who've had to perform a false perfection to walk on water the way society wants them to, work twice as hard at a job. Or people of color who must perform a certain way in order to fit into the box of society, right? LGBTQ folks who felt like they have to walk in a certain way to even feel like they are accepted with human dignity. Immigrants who have to jump hoop after hoop, and somehow nothing is never okay. Heck, men who feel pressured to live up to this false sense of masculinity, like you can't eat vegetables because that's not manly enough. You need vegetables. It's very manly to eat vegetables. Who are you trying to force to walk on water? Who are we as peoples trying to force to walk on water? It is to the benefit of the status quo that we don't see our common humanity in all of our difference, both celebrating the difference and seeing the common humanity. That we are all going to fall in the water. Heck, we're all in the same water. Solidarity can begin when you believe that though we have many different journeys and experiences, identities, we all fall into the same water. We all flow in and out of the same water. I'm wondering if you're seeing the connection now between the baptism and this story. As mentioned, I am the director of youth initiatives at Together Lab, and I oversee the youth initiative, the Youth Solidarity Movement. YSM's mission is to cultivate community for youth and the adults who care for them so that young people can experience belonging. The foundational anchor is that every young person is swimming in the same water and that every young person belongs. Whether you're black or white, lesbian or trans, no matter your income or status or neurodivergent, whether you're short or tall, I like that one in particular. And because you belong, the trusted adults around you will do their best to walk and accompany you. And because you belong, you as a youth have agency and a say and even can be a leader in how we can help cultivate belonging in our communities together. One of the things YSM does, with Together Lab, we partner with different churches in a region to form local youth collectives of play and purpose. And I love this one example. One youth collective we work with, actually around in this county, the West Side Youth Collective, they had their youth organized and led a beach cleanup. I mean, you can't get more literal to the metaphor than this. We're all swimming in the same water, so we might as well make sure it's not filled with trash, right? Those kids had a good idea. Solidarity with God's creation. Solidarity across generations. Solidarity with one another. Because we all fall into that same water, so let's carry each other through it. That's what this church community is all about, right? So let me finish with the question I asked at the beginning. What if the act of faith isn't walking on water, but being willing to fall into it? What if the act of faith isn't walking on water, but being willing to fall into it? I invite you to ask yourself the question, what waters are you afraid to fall into this moment? And what step forward might you take today, this week, so that when you fall, I fall, we don't have to do it alone? Because in the water, we are never alone. Amen.